This will feed your mind. And so the Artemis moon mission has seemed to create a lot of skeptics, and people with large audiences have been covering this Artemis trip and have been very skeptical of it. And people that have been silent for a long time about what they believe about the Earth and outer space, they have all pretty much come forward now. And they're all basically rejecting what they saw with this Artemis moon trip. It's interesting that Jeranism has went super quiet on this. I wonder what's going on with Patricia Steer as well, and these people that flipped to the globe, because now they're looking at this Artemis trip and you haven't heard a peep from them. So I wonder why. Is it because they feel like they might have been bamboozled, perhaps? Because with all of the trickery they saw with this Artemis trip, I'm sure at this point you would have to almost feel like maybe you were played on that final experiment as well. But look, we did have Witsit and DITRH and Ironwork and Mark Sargent all team up and analyze the Artemis trip and the splashdown as well. And so that was a pretty interesting panel where they just tear apart the Artemis. And so with the splashdown, that concluded the Artemis trip after an alleged 10-day journey around the moon and back. And then we saw everyone tune in for the grand finale where they had this splashdown event and they got them out of the capsule. And so in this video, we're going to go over some pretty interesting things that I have caught when it comes to the splashdown. Plus, we're going to also conclude this video by covering some of the bloopers that I noticed when it comes to the Artemis floating objects in outer space and stuff like that. So with the splashdown event, it's interesting that according to science, this module had to journey back to Earth, traveling about 24,000 miles per hour. And as it was on this intense journey back to Earth, they're saying this Artemis cabin actually heated up to about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So how did they survive that, going through the Van Allen radiation belt? And plus, wouldn't have they gotten cooked inside? Like, how did they keep themselves comfortable if the outside of the module was heating up to 5,000 degrees on re-entry? How were they able to keep comfortable inside? Like, wouldn't have they heated up as well on the inside of the cabin? Plus, at a certain point, metal actually begins to melt. Now, they said they had some type of heat shield technology that prevented them from being cooked like in an oven, but I'm not so sure that's even possible. And another interesting thing is they're saying that they lost communication for about 6 minutes while they were in re-entry to the Earth's atmosphere. And so not only did they get through the Van Allen belt and survive this massive amount of heat and speed, but also, according to science, it was possible that they could have bounced off of the atmosphere as well. That sounds pretty interesting. I mean, let's hear the official science explanation of what the astronauts had to go through to get through this re-entry process and back down to Earth.
Just a few hours ago, Artemis 2 successfully landed the astronauts back on Earth. Here's everything you missed. Splashdown is the most dangerous part of the mission. They go from flying through space after visiting the moon to landing in the Pacific Ocean in just 13 minutes. First, they had to set their angle, because if they came in too shallow, they could literally bounce off the atmosphere like a rock skipping on water. The capsule separated from the service module and performed a single burn to set the trajectory. They aren't flying anymore. They're falling back to Earth. They smashed into the atmosphere at 40,000 kilometers per hour. That's 32 times the speed of sound. The atmosphere formed a plasma around Orion over 2,500 degrees Celsius. The heat shield burns away to slow them down, and this is what a panel of the heat shield actually looks like. The plasma actually blocks out radio waves, so they lost communication with the crew for a few minutes during re-entry. And then once they had slowed down enough, the parachutes were deployed, and they safely floated down into the Pacific Ocean, where they were collected and taken to safety. For the first time since 1972, humanity has just completed a successful mission to the moon. Follow to learn more.
So this was quite the show for these astronauts to be able to survive this intense re-entry journey back to Earth until they splashed down in the ocean. But how did this Artemis capsule splash down in the ocean after being heated up to 5,000 degrees without there being any steam is the question. So look, when I'm analyzing this Artemis capsule re-entry, there is a lot of speculation as to whether or not there was a cargo plane in the area that might have dropped this capsule from the sky to make it look like they re-entered back onto Earth, but really they were here on Earth the whole time in a green screen room, according to a lot of skeptics. And so check out this footage of the alleged test runs for this Artemis capsule, with this footage showing us how these capsules are being pushed out of a cargo plane and then the parachute opens up. And so is it possible that this is what they did for the Artemis return? Check this out. And so it looks like this was one big show. And so in my previous videos, you'll see how there was evidence that these astronauts could have made an escape before the rocket took off on this escape pod, and they were never on this rocket that went into the sky. And so let's go over some of the interesting things that was discovered with these astronauts that were floating in space, because people were wondering, how are they pulling off this show to have people tune in to live TV to see them floating around the microphone and floating around objects in space? This sells the whole space narrative because people love to see that floating stuff going on in outer space, but that's not too hard to pull off with the budget of NASA. And so the way that they're able to pull off floating objects in outer space is not too complicated. All they need is augmented reality and the special contact lens where the astronauts can see these invisible 3D objects and they can interact with these objects and make it appear like things are floating around, but really they're just putting on a show for everyone. People have noticed that there was this one bag that was spinning around with a red dot on it, but that red dot actually disappeared for a while and then it reappeared. Check this out.
But watch as this food pouch spins near this astronaut's face. You can see as the edge grazes his forehead, it glitches out and goes right through, rather than realistically touching his face. There is no change in direction of the pouch from hitting his head, and instead it just continues floating right through, as if he wasn't there at all. Now pay attention to the red spot on the white pouch. As the pouch spins around slowly, the red dot doesn't spin with the pouch. For several frames, you can see the red dot stay in exactly the same shape and space, not realistically moving and turning with the rest of the bag. Then, as the bag continues to turn, at one point, you can see the red dot just vanishes completely. For several turns, the bag continues spinning around, but the red dot is nowhere to be found. And then, finally, after some more turns, the red dot mysteriously and inexplicably reappears. This is because these are digital and not physical objects which they are interacting with, using a technology called augmented virtual reality. By wearing special VR contact lenses, you are able to see a digital overlay of pre-rendered interactable 3D objects within your physical 3D space. The objects do not exist in physical space, but are seen and interactable live in real time through the use of this technology. Remember, NASA takes over $70 million per day of American taxpayer money. A big-budget Hollywood movie like Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock, was filmed 100% on Earth, using nothing but wires, green screens, and CGI. That movie cost $100 million to make. That's NASA's budget for a day and a half. Imagine what kind of movie can be made with NASA's yearly budget of $24 billion. In fact, you don't have to imagine, because this entire Artemis II charade, and everything else from NASA, is exactly that. A big-budget Hollywood production made with the express purpose of disseminating this propaganda into the minds of the masses. The loyal NASA fanboy sycophants will try to make excuses and brush these impossible anomalies and wild discrepancies under the rug. But the more discerning amongst us are waking up. And I'm seeing this Artemis mission backfire, as many more people are finally seeing through the lies.
And so with the budget of NASA, it wouldn't be too difficult to pull this off. And so this is the way that they present to the public that they're in outer space, but really it's just trickery. And so check out this last clip I'm about to show you, where you see this woman that's playing with this floating object in space, where at first it looks like you can see the shadow on her leg, but then eventually that shadow disappears. So that would be more evidence of these astronauts using augmented reality. Check this out.
This one is my all-time favorite, so I hope you guys stuck around for this. Watch this ball. Now, it's not casting a shadow on her leg, and you might think, well, maybe it's not hovering over her leg. But if her hands were to grab that ball, and you could see the shadow of her hand on her leg, then you should be able to see the ball, correct? If she's holding the ball and you see her hands shadow on her leg, then the ball should cast a shadow as well, right? Well, when she lets go of the ball, there's no shadow. Check it out. She's holding the ball. You see the shadow of her hands. Hands move away. The ball leaves no shadow. If you see the shadow of her hands holding the ball, you would see the shadow of the ball. I hope that makes sense. I play it again. No shadow from the ball alone. Why? Because this is augmented reality. This is so easy to do, and yet we just put so much trust in these people.
And so where did the shadow go? Look, these are just some of the bloopers that people have discovered while checking out this Artemis trip. And so if you want to check out my full collection of videos, check out the comment section and description box, and you can see my entire Artemis playlist. Because when it comes down to it, when are we going to see the upside down airplanes flying around from outer space? With this whole Artemis thing, I think this is causing a lot of people that were on the fence about flat Earth to really start questioning this whole thing again. And it's really looking like it's bringing in a whole lot of people to the subject again. It's like a gift for the flat Earth community. People are questioning the shape of the Earth more than ever now than before. And so stay tuned for much more on the way. Like I said, check out my Artemis playlist and share it with friends and family. And if you want to check out my secret members only videos, I'll leave a link for that as well, where you can become a YouTube member for as little as $1 and you'll gain access to all of my members only videos. Let's get over 500 likes on this video. I'm going to leave links to my Feed Your Mind store, my free email newsletters, my social media links, and much more. Make sure you subscribe. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Feed Your Mind signing off. If you want to learn how to clean your public water in the comfort of your home, check out this water distiller. I have the same one at my house. I've been using it for years. And so if you want to get it, I have an affiliate link in the comment section and description box, or you can just click the link and learn more about it.